DHCP client transition states. If you see, there are so many messages which are exchanged. One message is DHCP discover. It has to discover the IP address. Then the server sends back telling DHCP offer. Then it has to send a DHCP request. Then the server has to communicate either using DHCP or else it sends a DHCP negative acknowledgement. So there are different states of operation which it has to toggle from one state to another state, the client machine I'm talking about. So this is illustrated by a finite state machine. The transition of different states of the client machine is illustrated using a FSM. What is FSM? Finite state machine. Finite state machine talks about the transition from one state to another state, and state when it changes its state from one to another after receiving or sending the respective messages. So this particular diagram tells you the DHCP client transition states, and this is being used, DHCP is being used for providing dynamically the address allocation, and the DHCP client acts as a state machine which performs transition from one state to another state after either sending the message or after receiving the message. The condition is whenever it sends a message or it receives a message, it changes its state from one state to another state. That's what is called as the finite state machine diagram, which talks about the transition states which the client machine goes through after giving or sending or receiving the messages. Initially, when it is not doing any operation, it will be in the initialization state. The client machine will be in the initialization state. Once it's in the initialization state and it wants to discover or get an IP address, it sends a DHCP discover signal, and after sending a DHCP discover message, it goes to the select state, and it will be in the select state till it gets a DHCP offer. So DHCP offer can come from one server or more than one server. Now, that is why it will be in the select state. Okay. Initially, when the system is on, network is on, it will be in the initialization state. So when the client machine wants to get an IP address, it goes to the select state by sending a DHCP discover message. That's what you have seen the DHCP operation. The first message which is sent from the client to the server is DHCP discover, requesting for the IP address to be allotted for the client machine. So after sending the DHCP discover, it goes to from initialization state, it goes to the selecting state. Why it is in selecting state? Because it now gets an offer, DHCP offer, that about its IP address from many of the servers. In the example, we have taken only one server. So as I said, DHCP offer is nothing but a message which is communicated in response to the client request by all the servers, telling that this can be taken as an IP address. So out of all the pool of IP addresses which it gets from different servers, it has to select only one which is appropriate for it. So that is why it will remain in the selecting state. So once that selecting state, once it gets an offer and selects the IP address, now it sends a DHCP request because it wants to confirm that IP address from the server. Once the DHCP request is sent, it moves from selecting state to the requesting state because now it is waiting for the confirmation from the server. If the server confirms the allotted IP addresses, then it sends an DHCP acknowledgement to the client. After getting the acknowledgement, the client moves from the request state to bound state. Suppose the acknowledgement is not received. The server is not in a position to confirm the IP address which it allotted during the DHCP offer. I said it can send a negative acknowledgement. So that is what is seen there. The request after getting an acknowledgement goes to bound state. If it gets a negative acknowledgement, it goes back to the initial state and starts DHCP discover again. So it will be in the bound state and finds out whether the lease time is one of the field in the message format, as we said. It checks for the lease time expiry. If the lease time has expired 50% of the allotted time, then it requests these for the release time extension or renewal of the release time by giving a DHCP request, and goes from bound state to renewal state. Now the IP address is going to be expired, and hence it asks for renewal of the IP address. If the renewal of IP address is accepted, it gets an acknowledgement and goes back to the bound state. Otherwise, if DHCP lease is cancelled, it is not in a position to give back, then it goes back to the initial state. Suppose 75%, it's not 87.5%, it is 75% of the lease time has expired, then it goes for the rebinding state. If 50% of the lease time has expired, it goes for the renewal state, and after sending a DHCP request, it waits for the acknowledgement and goes back to the bound state. That means now it can use the IP address for certain amount of lease period. Suppose 75% of the lease time has expired already, then it goes for rebinding state, again telling the server to reinitiate the lease time period for using the IP address. So if the DHCP acknowledgement comes from the server, it goes for the bound state. So the IP address which is allotted by the server can be used only when the client is in bound state, renewal state, or rebinding state. Otherwise, it cannot. If the IP address is not granted and lease time expires totally, then it cannot use that IP address. Suppose IP address is not acknowledged, the rebinding state is not acknowledged by the server, then it goes back to the initialized state. I'll repeat. Initially, the client machine will be in the initialization state. Now it wants to get an IP address from the server. So it sends a message as DHCP discover. That's what we have seen in the DHCP operation. Once the DHCP discover is sent, it goes from initialization state to the selecting state. So in this, why it goes to the selecting state? Because it can be more than one server which is offering the DHCP. DHCP offer message may be sent from many servers to the client machine offering the IP address. So it will remain in the select state and selects the offers which are provided by all the server machine. If it confirms, if it gets the offer, if it selects the offer, from selecting state, it goes to the requesting state by sending a DHCP request signal. So it will remain in requesting state, and if it waits for the DHCP acknowledgement, confirmation from the server that this IP address you can use. So from request state, it goes to the bound state. Suppose the server cannot give the acknowledgement, cannot give the same IP address, then it sends a negative acknowledgement, DHCP negative acknowledgement. In that case, if it, instead of getting positive acknowledgement, it gets a negative acknowledgement or NAC, it goes back to the initialization state and starts the discover procedure from the beginning. Suppose it gets an acknowledgement, that means that IP address is confirmed. Now it switches from request state to bound state. In the bound state, it can stay and use the IP address. To use the IP address, it checks for the lease time, whether lease time is expired or not. If 50% of the lease time has expired, it requests for the renewal, moves from bound state to renewal state. And if it gets the acknowledgement, that means there is an extension of the lease time for using the IP address. Suppose 75% of the lease time has already expired, then it goes for the rebinding state and sends a request and if it gets an acknowledgement, then it can again further use the IP address for the remaining period of time. So IP address which is offered by the particular server can be used by the client when it is in bound state, renewal state, or rebinding state. If any of these states are not there, that means there is no permission for the client machine to use that IP address. Then it has to start again from the initialized state. Suppose the lease time expires and no permission is granted for continuation of the IP address, that is lease time expired, then DHCP sends a negative acknowledgement instead of acknowledgement, and then instead of going to bound state, it has to start its process again from the initialization state. So this is the transition state diagram, which tells about the finite state machine for the DHCP client machine, which gets the IP address by using a protocol called as dynamic host configuration protocol. DHCP uses a client server process, and that's why you have a request and a response in a defined format. So the messages which are exchanged are DHCP discover from client to server, and server to client it is DHCP offer. So and if particular client selects a particular IP address, then it sends a request signal to the server machine, and server, if it gives an acknowledgement, if it is in a position to offer that IP address, after that it can check the expiry period and start using that IP address. Suppose server cannot give the IP address during all this transition, then it sends a negative acknowledgement. So the client machine has to discover the IP address starting from the first message, which is called as DHCP discover for. So this is about the important topic about DHCP. I've just added all these description to be sent to you. So now we have discussed about DHCP, which is a very, very important topic. Let me just again go through it for your just remembrance purpose. So we just defined what is DHCP, dynamic host configuration, which is useful for providing prefix part of the address, address of a router, address of the name server, or name of the server instead of address. And this is the message format which is used for reply as well as response. So, reply, response, or request. So this is the DHCP message format. And I said options is indicated by a cookie IP address. If it checks that magic cookie number, then that means it's an indication that for the client that there is options added in the message. So it looks for that, and these are the three fields of the options which it looks for. If the tag value is 53, then it can use any of these 8 messages. Then we came to operation of the DHCP, wherein client can ask for IP address using DHCP discover, and any server can offer IP address using DHCP offer format. And for confirmation, it again sends a DHCP request. If the server is in a position to offer the IP address, it acknowledges using DHCP acknowledgement. Otherwise, it sent a DHCP negative acknowledge. All the destination addresses are always broadcast addresses, because all the servers should understand whether the IP address is offered by any of the server or not. Next, we have seen the finite state machine for the DHCP client, which is the transition states, which the DHCP uses from initialization to selecting state to requesting state to bound state, and it remains in the bound state and asks for the renewal of the lease time, going to renewal or rebinding if at all 50% of the lease time expires or 75% of the lease time expires. It sends a request, gets an acknowledgement, and so that IP address can be used by the client. If it does not receive an acknowledgement, that's an indication that it has received DHCP negative acknowledgement and goes back to the initialization state and start the process from the beginning. So whenever it is in bound, renewal, or rebinding, IP addresses are permitted to be used by the client machine. So the next topic is address resolution. So we have seen what is DHCP. The next topic is address resolution. So that is provided by NAT. NAT stands for Network Address Translation. So network address resolution is a topic, next topic. So the network address resolution is nothing but NAT, Network Address Translation. So as we know that ISP provides you the internet addresses or the IP addresses. Suppose a small organization requires only 3 addresses. So the 3 addresses can be requested by the ISP, and it can provide to the small organization or to the individual for household purposes. if the ISP request, the host machine can request for one IP address from the ISP, and ISP will provide one address. Later on, if they want to increase more number of devices to be connected individually to the IP, but using IP addresses, if they request, sometimes ISP may be in a position to provide IP addresses or may not be in a position to provide all the request IP addresses because there is a shortage of IP addresses. In such cases, the people can do is they can have a private network consisting of a set of private addresses which is acceptable for communication purpose, and they can have one address which is provided by the ISP for global communication. Why is this required? Why NAT is required is because most of the time, if you are using three devices, all the three devices may not simultaneously, may be or may not be using internet all the time. That's why instead of wasting the addresses, they can have a set of private addresses for internal communication and have one global address for external communication provided by the ISP. So how to connect private address to the global address for global communication or global internet? That translation is done by what is called as network address translation or network address resolution, which is done by the NAT. So let's see the diagram. So let's see a simple implementation of a NAT. So these are the three host machines which are connected using private addresses for internal communication purpose, 172.18.3.12, some 20 machines. And this cannot communicate using these private addresses to the internet because it's not provided for global communication. Then how do I communicate, send a packet to somebody else outside my network? That can be provided using what is called as network address translation. So all communication from the private network to the internet is through a router. So the router has an address 200.224.5.8. So all communication from private network to internet is through only this address 200.224.5.8. So the other networks which are connected to part of the internet, external network, will not know the private addresses. It is the router, NAT router, which is called as the router, which is connecting a private network to the internet, only can translate the address from the external address to the IP address to the private address, or vice versa, from private address to the external address. So all communication happens only through the router. For the external world, only router is visible, not the private network. So for the private network, if they want to send a packet to the external world, it is only through the router. So the router is responsible for converting the private address to the destination address so that it reaches the external world. This is what is called as network address translation or the address resolution, which happens because of saving the IP addresses. Okay. So this is how a NAT is implemented. So how do we actually translate this address? So from private address to, how does the router do the translation from the private address to the IP address? Or if a packet is coming to the one of the host machine which is connected to this network from outside world, it goes to the router. From router it has to be dispatched to the respective destination point. So for the external world, only router address is known, the private addresses are not known, but still communication is happening from private network to external network, and from external network to back to private network machine is because of the router. The router does the translation, and it has the translation table for converting private address to the external address or the IP address. So let's see the example. So now my packet has to go from a machine whose private address is 172.18.3.1. It does not go directly, it goes to the router. Now if you see, from router it has to be dispatched to the destination point. So now for the external world, Only router is known, but not the private network. So you can see that the source address 172.18.3.1 is converted into 200.24.5.8 as the source address, because for the external world, only the router is visible and not the private network. So similarly, for the external world, when it wants to communicate to any of the machine, so the destination address is only the router address 200.24.5.8. That is how this example just tells you how a packet leaves from private network to external world or external network using the router. The router address only is the actual source and destination point. When a packet comes from the external network to the private network, the destination address is 200.24.5.8. That means a router should have a translation table which can convert this address and send it to the respective private address. That is done by the address translation. So for that, it uses this address translation table. The translation table is built in at the router during the exchange of packets. So it has two columns if you see, private and universal. Universal is the external communication. Private is the private addresses of the network. So now source address of a machine has is 172.18.3.1. Let us say this host machine wants to send a packet to 25.8.2.10, which is somewhere. So now the destination address is 25.8.2.10. This is coming from a private network, one of the machine which has created this packet. If you see the second step, it goes to the router. For the external world, it does not, or the external network, it does not know the address 172.18.3.1. It only knows the address of the router. Hence, router changes the source address from 172.18.3.1 to its own address, that is 200.24.5.8, and records this address. Records this address what? It knows that initial source address is 172.18.3.1 and the destination address is 25.88.2.10. It records in the translation table, makes that entry in the, after changing the source address, it makes an entry in the translation table. That is the next step. After this, so next time, when a packet comes from an external world with a destination address as 200.24.8.5 and source as 25.8.2.10, then what it does, it changes this particular, it requires this access table and converts this destination address, because for the external network only router is the destination point. So now 200.24.8.5 is changed to which one? 172.18.3.1 and 25.8.2.10 is a source machine which is in the external network. So because, how does it change? How does it translate? Because when sending a packet, when the source machine is sending a packet to a private address, source machine is sending a packet to a external network, it had already made an entry as 172.18.3.1 as a private address and the universal address as 25.8.2.10. So whenever a packet is sent with this source address, it dispatches that and changes that address from 200.24.8.5 to 172.18.3.1 using the translation table and sends it to that particular device or the machine. This is what is the significance of network address translation. If you see, there is only one network. Yeah. There is only one network and only one IP address is being used. And the communication is between a set of addresses in the private network to one global address, which are the universal address which is used for communication. That means initially NAT was used only for connecting a one IP address to a set of or a pool of private addresses or a private network. Here you can see that only one private network can be used or communicated using one universal address, and that's why this particular translation can happen. Suppose you want to have more than one private network connected, then you can go for pool of addresses. So instead of having one universal address, you can have different universal addresses or IP addresses, and using the suppose you have 4 IP addresses, you can connect 4 private networks. In this case, it's only one private network connected to one IP address for communication purpose. If you want to have more than one private network connected using NAT, then you should have more than one universal address. In that case, suppose if you have 4 IP addresses or 4 universal IP addresses, you can connect 4 different private networks and have 4 different translation tables for converting universal to private address and private to universal address. This is how you can have an address translation happening. Let me repeat. So NAT was initially initiated because with the concept that you can save some of the IP addresses, because if you give more IP addresses to a small organization or an individual users, all the devices may not be using the global internet services all the time, and hence you can have a private addresses for internal communication and a global internet address for at least one for communicating with the external world. That was the idea of initiating a NAT, network address resolution. How does it map a private address to the global address or internet address? Using what is called as network address translation, wherein the main device which is used for mapping is what is called as the translation table, which is built by the router which connects a private network to the internet or the external network. So this is the diagram which is used for telling about the significance of a router which connects a private address to the external network. So for all communication, the address of the router is important. If you want to dispatch a packet from private network to the global network, the source address becomes the router address ultimately. If the external network wants to send a packet to a particular private network, the destination point becomes a router, which in turn, using the translation table, sends the packet to the respective devices in the private network. This is an example where only one private network is there. NAT initially started with one private network and one IP address for communication purpose, for external communication. So that you need not have to have more number of IP addresses in this case. If you are using for your addresses only for internal communication, it can be a set of private addresses which can be used for internal communication and one IP address for external communication. This is when you want to connect one private network for external network. Suppose you want to have more than one private network, the one IP address will not be sufficient. You should have at least 4 IP addresses for connecting 4 different private networks. So how does the translation happen? This is how the translation happens. Source address will be the with the initial private address which is stamped, and the router changes when it has to go to the external network. It changes the private address to the its own address as the source address, and the table which is used is what is called as translation table. So whenever we are talking about only one private network connected with one IP address, and hence here one private network is there. Let us say out of all those 20 machines, source machine 172.18.3.1 has generated a packet and it wants to send to some destination address. It goes to the router changes the source machine to source address to its own address as 200.24.5.8, and it makes an entry of the source private address and also the destination address as a main entry, and then sends the packet. If at all the packet comes back from this destination to the source, then it uses this translation table, because the destination address will be the packet coming from the external network will be having a destination address as a router address. Router receives the packet, sees the translation table. For this destination, the packet was sent from 172.18.3.1. So it dispatches to the particular source machine. So this is how translation happen as an example.
Ma'am,
Yes.
Ma'am, I have a doubt in the previous slide, ma'am.
Which slide? Translation?
The previous than this one. Yeah, this one, ma'am. So this private network has many hosts in it, and each one is assigned a address by the NAT.
Yeah, not by the
Suppose
NAT, by its own. No, they can use their own IP addresses. It is
one
not internet address. They can have their own local addresses. The local addresses is called as private address. You are not
private
using the
address, ma'am.
IP address for
So the
external
same,
communication. Yeah,
so the same IP address. What if there exists a same IP address in the external network? Like the
it
destination
will
is,
not. It will not. It will not.
ma'am, how,
There
ma'am?
is a
Because
pool of
just one.
addresses which is recognized as private addresses in the internet organization.
Oh, okay, ma'am. Ma'am,
There
the
is a
next
pool of
slide.
addresses which are recognized as in private addresses. Okay, from there only it will be configured. If
Okay,
it
ma'am.
gives the same 200.24.5.8 as the IP address, the packet does not dispatch at all. Okay, there will be conflict.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, the next slide, ma'am.
Translation
Yeah, ma'am.
or previous one?
The next one, next one.
Yeah,
Translation.
yeah.
Ma'am, here, what if there are many number of private? Okay, okay, wait, ma'am. Here, you're telling the translation table is gonna get filled only if the packet goes out from the
Yes,
private
yes,
network.
yes,
So,
yes.
what if there is directly a packet coming from a destination to this network? So, where will the data go?
Packet, if it comes, no, then it has to go to the router only. It
Yeah, ma'am. If
cannot
it comes
skip
to the
the
router,
router.
which
Yeah.
system in the private network will receive it? Because the table isn't filled yet.
Yeah, it is not filled. Say there is dotted, right? So for every, like your routing table or the forwarding table, no, which you have seen previously. So for every exchange of packets, all this translation table will be filled up. Okay. So this is an unfilled, where an example is taken where only the source machine, one of the machine is considered as a source and the destination machine is somewhere else. Only one machine is sending the packet. Like that, for every time whenever a source initiate a external communication, the translation table will follow all these 4 steps.
So, if data doesn't go out, it can't receive any
Yeah, no,
message
no.
back. So it has to first send and then only receive.
Yes, yes.
It can't directly receive from an
No,
external
no, no, no.
system.
Only router can receive. For the external communication, only router is seen, not the private network.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
So, I said you can have a set of IP address instead of one, which we showed as an example. If you want to connect 4 private networks, you can have 4 IP address and establish 4 interfaces of router connected to different IP private networks. Or else you can increase the translation table. In your previous translation table, there were only 2 columns. You can in fact have a private IP address, private address. You can also have a private port number, external address, external port number, and also the protocol, which is TCP IP mentioned here, TCP mentioned here. So using this, it goes to the respective destination. Suppose the transmission or communication has to be faster, then in the previous table, what did you see? You had only 2 column entry. One is the private address, the other one is universal address. Suppose you're using some specific application like HTTP, FTP, etc. It has to go to the respective port, right? It has to go to the respective port because all these applications are recognized by the port addresses. So if you want to minimize the communication or make it faster, minimize the delay, then in that case, instead of having 2 column translation table, you can also add port addresses so that it goes directly to the specific port or the specific destination point to that particular port number only. So that you can also have another way of increasing or improving the NAT is to have, instead of 2 column, you can also have a 5 column translation table. And this is useful only when you have a particular applications like HTTP, FTP, etc., where port addresses are very, very important. In that case, if you add that entry also in the translation table, then it directly goes to the destination point. Of course, through the router, NAT router, but it goes directly to that particular port. This is the advantage of having more number of columns in the translation table. It's just an improvement of first version of NAT to the next one. Okay. So we have discussed about DHCP, and we have also discussed about NAT. Okay. Next, actually we have to discuss about forwarding the packets. We have already defined the function of what do you mean by forwarding of packets. If you remember, forwarding of packets can happen with reference to labels, or it can happen with reference to the address. So if you use an IP as an IP address, then how forwarding can happen? Forwarding of packet based on destination address. For that, you should understand that there are two types of addressing which is accepted. One is classful addressing, the other one is classless addressing. So in a classless addressing, the forwarding table looks like this. So it will have a network address including mask, next hop IP address, and the interface of the router. So suppose if you have a router which has three interfaces like this, M0, M1, M2, which can connect to three different networks, how does a forwarding module work? The forwarding module will work in this fashion. It will, when a packet arrives at the router, it has to first extract the destination address, then it has to search this forwarding table. So after searching the forwarding table, it understands that, say if this is the network address will always be the first entry in the table, which you will understand when you talk about classless addressing. So address is usually represented as x0.y0.z0.d0. That means it's a 32-bit address. /n represents the mask. Mask is very useful to find the prefix value. So mask is used for finding the prefix value. So the classless address notation is always in like this: x.y.z.t/n. /n represents the mask. Okay. So first of all, when a packet arrives at the router, one of the interfaces of the router, then what it does, it extracts the destination address and searches the table. How does it search the table? It for the destination address, it applies the mask. That means if the mask value is 26, it retains, so you have IP address as 32 bits. If your mask value is 26, it retains the value of 26 bits of the destination address, and the remaining bits are made as 0. So if after converting that, it searches the table whether the destination address as created by applying mask is matching the first row or second row, like that. Row by row it searches. Whichever row it has the matching address is found, that row becomes the network address, the address of the network, and finds out the next hop address and an interface through which the packet has to leave. So this information having got, the forwarding of packets can happen in classless type of addressing. This problem does not come in classful, and hence we are more specific about classless addressing. Okay.